Randi Weingarten joins us now. She's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, one of the largest teachers unions in the country. What are you hearing, Randi, from your members who have woken up to these letters?
So, our members work in the field in schools. We don't have members that actually work at the Department of Education, but we have people like, for example, the head of all of Career Tech Ed at the Department of Education. This is Career Tech Ed Month, so we were talking to her when she was put on leave, and she's the one who actually makes sure that that school districts all across America have the money that they need for kids to become welders and for kids to have apprentice programs or for things like that. So what we're hearing is just complete chaos and, frankly, a whole bunch of cruelty, because at the end of the day, you can make departments more efficient, and I'm not a big believer in bureaucracy, but this feels like, as Elon Musk said to you, evisceration. So here's a guy who has hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts from these departments, and he's not touching them, but what he's doing is really taking money from kids who really need it in the field. And these departments, yes, they can be much more efficient, but that's what the education department does. It gives out money to kids so you can feed them a decent lunch, so we can have, tutors for reading, so you can actually help kids with math problems. That's what's going on right now.
And to be clear on Elon Musk, we really don't know the scope of what exactly he's doing. He's been involved with 19 agencies. He does have some contracts in front of those agencies, but there's not transparency. And when it comes to the funds, the Trump administration says that it's going to go to locals, that the local officials know what's best for their community, and the education department is no longer needed. That is what they say. Why is that an issue for you?
So look, spoiler alert, that's what happens now. I mean, education, if I can make one point to your listeners or viewers, education is run by states and localities. It's always been run by states and localities. But about 50 or 60 years ago, Lyndon Johnson, who was one of those local teachers, his kids would come into his classroom without shoes on. They were really poor. And so when he became president, he said, look, let's actually level up. Instead of taking, instead of actually trying to say to states and localities, you got to spend more, which, they should, let's actually have federal dollars that help kids who are poor. Let's actually have federal dollars that help kids who are disabled. Let's actually have federal dollars if career tech ed is important for that kind of things. So what the Department of Education does is it's a supplement that actually really helps kids. And if you ask any teacher in America and you say to them Title I, they're like, oh my God, we need those funds to help kids.
What do you say, though, to the Republicans, the administration, who argues, look, the Department of Education has been there, but when you look at the metrics like test scores, they are down across the board. And that is really concerning. And so what is the Department of Education actually doing if we're seeing these poor test scores? And we haven't seen a rebound since COVID hit. And as you well know, they put a lot of a blame on the Democrats and teachers unions for the way that was handled. What do you say to that?
So if you look across the world, what you're seeing is that places where you had fairly well-off schools, you saw rebounds. Places where you had really poor ventilation in schools or overcrowding schools, you don't see that rebound. And you also see, as actually some conservative journalists said when these scores came out, that things like social media have really hurt here. So I look at the scores around the world, and what it's showing is, yes, we have to strengthen education. We have to make schools safe and welcoming places. And we have to do a lot more career tech ed and project-based instruction to make it engaging and relevant for kids. And that means, frankly, looking at the accountability processes that were put in place by George W. Bush, because we've seen a plateauing out since that happened. Before that happened, in the late 19 in like 1980s, 1990s, you saw scores gallop up. So we need to do a lot of these things. But this is the point I'm trying to make. It's what the federal Department of Education does is about helping the kids who need the most. We need those services. And frankly, I also think that we need federal intervention to have more career tech ed, to have more apprenticeships, to actually make sure that every young person in high school gets to make a choice between, do you want shop? Do you want career opportunities in addition to college? That's what a federal role is.
Let me just follow up with one question. As this Senate votes to approve Linda McMahon to run the Department of Education and dismantle it, as Trump himself said, that is taking place right now. As this is taking place, what would be your message to her? What is the impact, for example? Help us understand the impact of some of these firings happening right now. For example, the Education Department employee you referenced. What would happen? What's going to happen as a result of that?
It's going to make it harder for teachers to teach and kids to learn. But from 30,000 feet, think about it this way. For every parent in America, if the first thing that Donald Trump does is says, I'm taking away education opportunities, what does that say to kids? I'm doing it so that we can have more tax cuts for the wealthy. What does that say to kids and parents? Make it more efficient. Let's do more career tech ed. Let's make sure we have more apprenticeships. Let's make sure we have safe and welcoming schools. There's a lot of things that we can do together. Don't pull the rug out from under kids. We need to protect our kids and strengthen our schools. And so the symbolic value here says to people across America, I don't care about education.
Randi Weingarten, thank you for sharing your thoughts, your perspective on this. We appreciate it.